It was well past midnight in my home gym, that quiet hour when the world goes to sleep and the iron still speaks. I had just finished my last set, slow, intentional reps, the kind you feel in your bones the next morning. The room smelled like rubber mats and chalk. The mirrors held those familiar ghosts of my past. The kid from Tal, the immigrant who could barely speak English, the champion who learned that pain was not an enemy but a teacher. I racked the bar and sat on the bench, breathing steady, the kind of breathing that comes after years of discipline. And then the room changed. You can call it fatigue, you can call it imagination, you can call it mystery. I will only tell you what I experienced. The hum of the AC dulled, the shadows in the corners softened, and a light, warm, and clean as morning filled the space. I didn't see a stadium or a crowd, I saw a presence. It wasn't the glare of a movie set or the spotlight of a stage. It was gentler, deeper. It felt like standing in the silence before a lift. When you know if your focus wavers even a fraction, the weight will not move. I heard my name Arnold, not from outside, but somehow inside, like a bell struck underwater. I have been called many things in my life, Mr. Universe, Governor, Terminator, but when I heard my own name in that voice, all the titles fell away like old posters in a storm. The presence did not condemn me, did not congratulate me, did not flatter. It simply drew me in the way a coach who believes in you looks at you before a big attempt. The first thing I saw was America, not a map, not a flag on a pole, but living scenes stitched together like a montage that refused to lie. Cities glittering like constellations turned upside down. Streets where people walked fast with earbuds and empty eyes. Homes with big screens and small conversations. Churches that were loud on Sundays and quiet in their kitchens. Gyms with perfect selfies and hollow hearts. Schools where the lockers were crowded and the souls were crowded out. I saw boardrooms and barbershops, movie sets and factories, kitchens with coffee brewing at 4 a.m. because some father had a double shift. I saw ambition, yes, but I also saw exhaustion. It was the kind of tired I recognized from backstage when the pump was gone and the cameras were off. A fatigue so deep it outlasts applause. America is strong, I said to the presence, almost defensively, the way you defend a friend. It has lifted heavy before. It can lift again. It has. The presence said voice like clarity, like a hand steadying the bar before your grip fails. But the form is breaking. Form. Any lifter knows the truth of that word. You can move the weight for a while with sloppy form, stealing inches with momentum and ego. But sooner or later, the joints pay, the back pays, the future pays. America was moving heavy technology, money, influence, without the posture of love, without the bracing of humility. The lift was happening, but the spine was rounding. I wanted to argue, but humility is a strange kind of strength. It grows in you when you accept that even you, especially you, have more to learn. The presence showed me families. A mother at the sink dried her hands on a towel and pretended not to notice the silence at the dinner table. A father scrolled through endless news feeds, his thumb moving faster than his thoughts. A teenager posted and deleted, hunting for validation like a hungry stray. I saw churches, too packed schedules, but thin hearts, sermons with polish and little surrender, leaders with big platforms and small prayers. I recognized the Hollywood version of faith, production over presence, performance over transformation. It was as if we had been building bigger stages and forgetting the backstage where character is formed. The light did not accuse, it instructed. You know the discipline of the body, it said. Learn again the discipline of love. In the gym, there are truths you cannot negotiate with. The iron doesn't care about your excuses. It reveals whether you trained or you didn't. Love, too, is a discipline. It does not arrive fully formed. It grows with repetitions, listening when you want to interrupt, forgiving when your pride is sore, showing up when the novelty has died. We have glamorized the highlight reel and outsourced the daily training of the soul. I laughed softly because the metaphor was so obvious, even I couldn't miss it. So, what do? I asked. What is the program? Return to first principles, the President said. Form before weight, character before achievement, relationship before platform, truth before strategy, service before spotlight. I thought about my life, the competitions, the films, the campaigns, the times I hit my goals and the times I missed my form. I thought about the coaches who corrected me when my ego ran faster than my legs. I thought about America, my adopted home, where people have corrected me, supported me, challenged me to be better. We can still be that for each other. The vision shifted. I saw sparks in the dark. Living rooms where a few friends prayed with no microphones and nobody to impress. Workshops where a business owner chose to pay employees fairly instead of just paying cleverly. Gyms where older lifters mentored younger ones, not for clicks but for character. Classrooms where teachers told the truth kindly and firmly, refusing to pretend that standards were oppression. Studios where art was made to heal, not just to trend. The sparks looked small, but I know what a spark can do when there's oxygen and intention. Revival, the President said, does not begin in halls of power. It begins in the quiet, where choices are made in secret and the heart is retrained. I remember the old mornings in a cold gym in Munich, no cameras, no crowds, just the clank of plates and the sting of winter on the skin. That's where strength was born, in obscurity. America's strength will be born again in the same place. The unseen rep, the unposted kindness, the habit nobody applauds. Show me more, I said, like a student asking for another set he knows will hurt. I saw what happens when form returns. It wasn't the fantasy of a perfect nation. I'm too old and too honest for fantasies. It was the picture of a country learning to brace its core again. Leaders, not only politicians, but teachers, artists, pastors, foremen, parents, kneeling before the truth that power is stewardship, not entitlement. Young people discovering that identity is a vocation before it is a brand. Churches becoming less like theaters and more like training centers where love is practiced until it is strong enough to lift the heaviest offenses. Technology turned from a mirror to a window, not trapping us in our own reflection, but opening us to the needs of the neighbor. America, the President said, was called to be a light. The bulb is not burned out, but the connection is loose. Tighten what is loose. I felt tears start and I did not fight them. You learn with age that some pains are not weaknesses leaving the body, they are truths entering it. I wept for the families I had just seen, for the leaders weary from shouting, for the young who had been handed endless options and very little wisdom. I wept because I loved this country stubbornly, imperfectly, like a man who has been corrected by it and blessed by it. The light lifted, not as if it were abandoning me, but as if it were stepping back to let me choose my next set. The room returned, the bar on the rack, the chalk in the air, the mirror with the man in it, who is still a student. I wiped my face and wrote down what I could remember, not to quote in a speech, but to become in a life. If strength is the result of 1,000 hidden reps, then the strength of a nation must be the result of 1,000,000 hidden acts of love formed before weight, always. Outside, the city was sleeping and dreaming. Inside, I tightened my belt, chalked my hands, and set my feet. The next rep would not lift itself. When the light faded, I stayed seated on that bench for a long time. The clock on the wall read 3:27 a.m., but time felt irrelevant. My body was tired, yet my spirit was wide awake. I looked around at the same walls, the same mirrors, the same weights, and yet everything felt different, as if the air itself carried meaning. What had just happened wasn't a dream, it was an encounter. I walked to the window and looked out over Los Angeles. The city lights shimmered like a restless ocean. I've spent decades chasing those lights, first as a bodybuilder, then as an actor, then as a leader. I thought they represented success. But after that night, they looked more like signals, millions of small fires searching for warmth. As I watched, memories surfaced. My first paycheck in America, my first English sentence that made someone laugh, the first time I won Mr. Olympia and felt both invincible and deeply alone. I realized how often I had confused achievement with purpose. The presence had been right, America is strong, but the form is breaking. And the only way to correct form is to slow down, breathe, and realign. That morning, as the first rays of sun crept through the blinds, I felt compelled to write down everything I remembered. I wrote not as a governor or celebrity, but as a student of truth. The message was clear. Strength without compassion becomes tyranny. Freedom without gratitude becomes chaos. And ambition without love becomes emptiness. I thought about the gyms of America, those temples of discipline where so many young people look for meaning in muscle and mirrors. I wanted to tell them that true strength isn't in the weight you lift, but in the people you lift when they're fallen. The iron is honest, but love is even more so. It reveals the real shape of the soul. Later that day, I met with a few friends for breakfast. They joked about my philosophical mood, but as I spoke, their laughter faded. I told them about the vision, about the fire I saw in the homes of ordinary people, the mothers praying in silence, the teenagers rediscovering faith, the workers choosing integrity over shortcuts. I told them America's hope wasn't in Washington or Hollywood, but in living rooms and kitchens where hearts decide whether to forgive or to harden. One of them asked, "Arnold, do you really believe America can change?" I smiled. "Of course, you've seen it before. Every great comeback starts the same way, with humility." That night, I trained again. But this time, I didn't put on music. I lifted in silence. With each rep, I prayed for someone. A broken family, a confused teenager, a leader burdened by pride. The iron became my altar. I thought of what the present said. Tighten what is loose. That phrase echoed through me. So I started small. I called my children and told them how proud I was of them, not for what they achieved, but for who they were becoming. I reached out to people I had drifted from. I visited a community center downtown where young men were training to rebuild their lives after addiction. I didn't bring cameras, I brought time. And as I watched them sweat and stumble and rise again, I saw America in them, bruised but unbroken, flawed but full of fight. Weeks passed, and I began speaking in different cities, not as a politician, but as a witness. I told them what I saw, a light flickering, but not gone. I said that revival doesn't start in crowds. It starts in quiet decisions when nobody's watching. The first rep of redemption is always invisible. People wept. Others laughed nervously. Some dismissed me as sentimental. I didn't care. I wasn't there to convince, I was there to testify. Because once you've heard that voice, once you've seen that vision, you can't stay silent. I remember one night in Texas, after a speech, a young man came up to me. He looked tough, tattoos, scars, the kind of stare that says he's had to fight for everything. He said, "Mr. Schwarzenegger, I was ready to give up, But when you said the light isn't gone, I felt something. I'm going to try again. That moment broke me more than any trophy ever could. It was proof that the message wasn't about me, it was about hope reborn in hearts that refused to quit. Months later, I returned to Austria to visit the house where I grew up. The same narrow room, the same wooden floor, the same view of the mountains. I stood there and whispered, "Thank you," not just to God, but to life itself for the discipline, for the failures, for the pain that became wisdom. And I realized something. Every nation, like every person, must remember its roots to survive. America's roots are not in luxury, but in longing for freedom, for faith, for a future worth building together. That night, as the stars rose over the Alps, I felt peace. The vision had changed me. I no longer wanted to be the strongest man in a room. I wanted to be the man who helped others find their strength. Because the presence hadn't just shown me America's wounds, it showed me its heartbeat. And as long as that heart is still beating, there's hope. If I've learned anything in my lifetime, it's this. The greatest power isn't in muscle or money or fame. It's in love that acts. The kind of love that forgives when it's hard, that listens when it's tired, that builds when it would be easier to walk away. That's the strength that saves nations. That's the strength that saves us all. And tonight, before I turn off the lights in my gym, I whisper again what I heard that night. America, tighten what is loose. I am still here.